Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyid al-Anbiya wal Mursaleen. Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na ma tu'allimna wa zidna bi fadlika ilman wa ta'liman innaka ala kulli shay'in qadir. So I just want to fast forward from the very beginning to where we got to in the matan and then go back to the sharh, inshallah. So he says, Kitab al-Tahara, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. المطهرات ثلاثة: الماء والتراب ما يدبغ به. Right? وأما الماء فثلاثة أنواع: مطهر وطاهر ونجس. فالمطهر نوعان: ما نزل من السماء أو نبع من الأرض. والطاهر ضربان: المستعمل في الوضوء أو النجاسة، ما لم تظهر فيه نجاسة، وما يظهر فيه شيء من الحلال meaning الطاهر فيستغني الماء عنه غالبا، أو استخرج من شيء طاهر. والنجس ضربان: ماء والنجس. So it says it calls it najas. I should think it should be a najis. Right? والنجس ضربان: ماء قليل حصلت فيه نجاسة، وماء كثير تغير بالنجاسة. والكثير قلتان فصاعدا، والقلتان 500. So 500, that's two words. 500 رطل بالبغدادي، وهو 250 منا. وهل هو تحديد أو تقريب؟ فيه وجهان. Right? And the correct one is that it's تقريبا. والقليل ما دون القلتين. وأما التراب فعلى ثلاثة أنواع: مطهر وهو التراب الذي لم يختلط بغيره، والطاهر وهو التراب الذي اختلط بطاهر حلال. Right. والنجس وهو التراب الذي أصابته نجاسة كتراب المقابر المنبوشة. Right? It's mixed with blood. وأما ما يدبغ به مثل الشث والقرض وقشور الرمان والعصف، وما تدبغ به العرب، سواء كان طاهرا أو نجسا، يجوز الدباغ به. كذلك ماء النجس إذا خالطه شيء من الطاهرات شبه الزاج والقرض. باب الطهارات. الطهارات 4: الوضوء والغسل والتيمم وإزالة النجاسة. باب الوضوء. الوضوء نوعان: فرض وسنة. فالفرض ما كان عن حدث، والسنة 13: تجديد الوضوء لكل فريضة، والوضوء في الغسل الواجب، والوضوء للجنب عند النوم وعند الوطع وعند الأكل، والوضوء عن الغيبة وعن حمل الميت وعند الغضب وعند الأذان والإقامة، وللجلوس في المسجد والاعتكاف فيه. والمحدث إذا أراد النوم بالليل يتوضأ كالجنب، وإذا أراد قراءة القرآن عن ظهر القلب. والوضوء يشتمل على 6 أشياء: فرض ونفل وسنة وأدب وكراهة وشرط. فأما الفرض ف7 أشياء: النية وغسل جميع الوجه وغسل اليدين مع المرفقين ومسح بعد الرأس وغسل الرجلين مع الكعبين، والترتيب والتتابع في أحد القولين. وأما النفل فشيء واحد وهو التوضؤ مرتين مرتين. وأما السنة ف15 شيئا: التسمية وغسل اليدين قبل إدخالهما الإناء 3، والمضمضة والاستنشاق والمبالغة فيهما إلا أن يكون صائما فيرفق، والاستنثار والمضمضة والاستنشاق بغرفة أو غرفتين. Okay, give me 1 second, please. My sincere apologies. Okay, where do we get to? Okay, so we got to here. We're saying بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والاستنثار والمضمضة والاستنشاق بغرفة أو غرفتين والتخليل اللحية الكثة. Right? So if it's not كثيف, it's واجب. ومسح جميع الرأس ومسح الأذنين ظاهرهما وباطنهما بماء جديد وإدخال المسبحتين في صماخي الأذنين ومسح العنق, right? And this is not relied upon, right? This position of a rafi. وتخليل أصابع الرجلين بالخنصر أو السبابة والتثليث والتيامن, starting with the right, وأن يقول آخر وضوئه أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأستغفرك وأتوب إليك. أما الأدب فهو 10 أشياء، وهي أن يستقبل القبلة وأن يقعد في مكان لا يرجع عليه الماء ولا يترشش، وأن يجعل الإناء عن يساره إن كان ضيقا، وإن كان واسعا فعن يمينه، وأن لا يستعين بغيره إلا عن ضرورة، وإن استعان جعله عن يمينه، ويبدأ في غسل الوجه بأعلاه وفي غسل اليدين بالكفين ومسح الرأس بمقدمه وفي غسل الرجلين بالأصابع، وأن لا ينفض يديه to shake your hands off ولا يمسحهما بمنديل. This is after the adab, right? So it's خلاف الأولى. باب ما يكره في الوضوء وهي 3 أشياء: الإسراف في الماء ولو كان على شاطئ البحر، وغسل الرأس ببدل المسح، والزيادة على 3. باب شرائط الوضوء وهو شرط واحد وهو أن يكون ماء مطلقا لا غير. باب ما ينقض الوضوء وهو 9 أشياء: ما يخرج من أحد السبيلين، ثاني وأن ينسد السبيل ويخرج الحدث من سبيل آخر، وما يغلب العقل إلا النوم قاعدا مستويا، مس فرج الآدمي ببطن الكف من نفسه أو من غيره، ملامسة بدن المرأة ولا حائل بينهما إلا الشعر والظفر والسن، وفي مس ذوات المحارم والصغار قولان. Right. So touching a little girl or touching your sister قولان. السادس انقطاع الحدث الدائم إلا في الصلاة. Right. So you had someone has continued the wudu's continually being broken, so they have this special wudu and then that stopped. They got healed. Right. Right. So then the wudu's stopped broken. بطلان حكم المسح على الخفين، وفيه قول آخر أنه يقتصر على غسل الرجلين, and that's the correct position. وبطلان حكم المسح على الجبائر. Suddenly you've wiped on it and you've taken it off or whatever it is. بطلان التيمم إذا جمع بينه وبين الماء، وفيهما قول آخر. باب الغسل. الاغتسال نوعان: فرض وسنة. فالفرض 10 أشياء: 5 منها على الرجال والنساء، و5 منها على النساء دون الرجال. فأما التي على الرجال والنساء فالإنزال والتقاء الختانين، ونجاسة جميع البدن، ونجاسة بعض البدن إن أشكل موضعها، وغسل الميت. وأما التي على النساء دون الرجال فالاغتسال من الحيض والنفاس والولادة والإسقاط miscarriage، وخروج مني رجل من قبلها. وأما الاغتسال المسنون ف22 نوعا: الاغتسال الجمعة والاستسقاء والخسوف والكسوف والعيدين والفطر والأضحى والكافر إذا أسلم والمجنون إذا أفاق، وأن غسل الميت في قول، والإحرام ودخول الحرم والوقوف بجمع أي بعرفة. sorry, مزدلفة, my mistake. بجمع is مزدلفة. والوقوف بعرفة، وفي 3 أيام منى قبل الرمي، ولدخول مكة، ولطواف الزيارة، وللحجامة، ودخول الحمام، والاستحداد shaving، وللإغماء، وكل حال تغير فيها البدن. والاغتسال يشتمل على 6 أشياء: فرض ونفل وسنة وأدب وكراهة وشرط. وأما الفرض ف3 أشياء: النية والتعميم في كل البدن، والتتابع في أحد القولين. وأما النفل فشيء واحد وهو الاغتسال مرتين. وأما السنة ف8 أشياء: التسمية وغسل اليدين قبل إدخالهما الإناء ثلاثا، وأن يغسل ما به من الأذى، ثم يتوضأ وضوءه للصلاة، ثم يحثي على رأسه ثلاث حثيات من ماء، وأن يخلل شعر رأسه ولحيته، وأن يبدأ بشقه الأيمن، وأن يمر يديه على جميع بدنه وهو الدلك، ويقول في آخره: أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله. وأما الأدب فثمانية أشياء: أن يستقبل القبلة، وأن يقعد في مكان لا يرجع عليه الماء ولا يترشرش، وأن يجعل الإناء عن يساره، وإن كان واسعا فعن يمينه، وأن لا يستعين بغيره إلا عن حاجة، وإن استعان جعله عن يمينه، ويبدأ بأعلى بدنه، وأن يكون في سترة. وأما الكراهية فشيئان: الإسراف so here the sutra was two issues. One is covering yourself so that other people don't see your aura, and then covering yourself even by yourself. وأما الكراهية فشيئان: الإسراف في الماء ولو كان على شاطئ البحر، والزيادة على ثلاث. وأما الشرط فشيء واحد، وهو أن يكون الماء مطلقا. باب ما يمنع الجنب منه ويمتنع الجنب من ثمانية أشياء: قراءة القرآن، وكتابته، ومسه، والصلاة، والسجود، والطواف، والخطبة، واللبث في المسجد، وله أن يعبر فيه. باب التيمم. التيمم لا يجوز إلا بالتراب الطاهر، وهو ضربتان: ضربة للوجه وضربة اليدين مع المرفقين. وللمتيمم حالان: أحدهما أن يجمع بينه وبين الوضوء، ثاني ينفرد عن الوضوء. فأما حالة الجمع فثلاثة: أن يجد من الماء ما لا يكفيه لطهارته، وأن يكون بعض أعضاء طهارته جريحا injured أو قريحا يخاف من استعمال الماء فيه التلف، وأن يأتي ببعض الوضوء وينضب الماء وهو مسافر لا يجد ما يتمم به طهارته. وأما حالة الانفراد خمسة عشر: في 5 منها تعاد صلاة، وفي 10 لا تعاد. فأما الخمسة التي تعاد الصلاة فيها فالتيمم لعدم الماء في الحضر، وخو وخوف فرط البرد في الحضر، والتيمم لنسيان الماء في رحله، وأن يكون على موضع التيمم لسوقا فتحة، وأن يضع الجبائر على غير طهر. وهذه أحكام ما تعاد فيه الصلاة. وأما العشرة التي لا تعاد فيها الصلاة فالتيمم لعدم الماء في السفر. الثاني أن يكون الماء بالشراء ولا يجد ثمنه. الثالث أن يجد ثمنه ويحتاج إلى الثمن في نفقته. الرابع أن يجده بأكثر من قيمته. والخامس أن يجد الماء ويحتاج إليه لشربه. السادس أن يجد الماء ويحتاج إلى بيعه في نفقته. Right, they're all the same basically. والسابع أن يكون بينه وبين الماء عدوا أو حائل. الثامن أن يطلع على ماء في بئر أو غدير ولا يجد ما يستسقي به. التاسع إذا وجد الماء وخاف من التلف من فرط البرد أو يخاف انقطاع الرفقة the group is going to leave you. وهذا كله في السفر. وإذا كان في السفر أو في الحضر وبه مرض يخاف من استعمال الماء فيه تلف، فإن خاف إبطاء البرء أو الشين أو الزيادة في المرض فعلى قولين. باب معرفة عمل المتيمم. التيمم يشتمل على خمسة أشياء: فرض وسنة وأدب وكراهية. والشرط: فأما الفرض فسبعة أشياء: طلب الماء، والقصد إلى نقل التراب، والنية، ومسح الجميع الوجه، ومسح اليدين مع المرفقين، والترتيب والتتابع في أحد القولين. وأما السنة فخمسة أشياء: التسمية ومسح جميع وجهه بضربة واحدة، ومسح اليدين بضربة واحدة، ونفض اليدين بعد الاستعمال عند الضربة الأولى to knock the two hands together، والبداءة باليمنى. وأما الأدب ثلاثة أشياء: استقبال القبلة، وأن يبدأ في مسح الوجه بأعلاه، وفي مسح اليدين بالكفين. وأما الكراهية فشيئان: استعمال التراب الكثير، والزيادة في كل عضو على مسحة واحدة. وأما الشرط فشيء واحد وهو أن يكون التراب مطلقا. باب ما ينقض به التيمم. ينقض التيمم بأربعة عشر شيئا، 9 ذكرناها في نقض الوضوء، وإنما يتصور بطلان المسح على الخفين في التيمم إذا كان جامعا بينه وبين الوضوء. وأما الخمسة الأخرى فوجود الماء إلا في الصلاة، فيغتفر في الدوام ما لا يغتفر في ابتداء. right. ووجود ثمن الماء أيضا إلا في الصلاة، وتوهم وجود الماء إلا في الصلاة أيضا، وارتفاع الشين الذي تيمم له إلا في الصلاة. right. So that's no longer an issue. Right. The medical reason that it was there is no longer there. فإن فإن سلم لا يصلي بعده إلا بطهارة جديدة. والخامس إذا نوى الإقامة في الصلاة بعد أن وجد الماء قبله. باب الفرق بين الوضوء والتيمم. ينقص التيمم عن الوضوء في 5 مسائل. أحدها أن التيمم على عضوين. الثانية أن لا يوصل التراب إلى أصول الشعر. والثالثة ألا يجمع بتيمم واحد بين فرضتين. الرابعة ألا يتيمم قبل دخول الوقت. الخامسة ألا يتيمم إلا في حال العذر. باب إزالة النجاسة. I don't think we got here, did we? I don't think we did.
I don't have any in my notes.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Okay. This is why I have the last note here. So he says فروضه 5. We've done that. I'm pretty sure we've done all of this. We did all this. Okay, so this would make sense here. So it says ومكروهه تكثير التراب وتكرير المسح لكل عضو لمخالفة الأخبار الدالة على عدم ذلك. وشروطه 15. ضربة للوجه وضربة لليدين مع المرفقين كما رواه ها كما رواه كذلك الحاكم كما رواه كذلك. strange structure. كما رواه كذلك الحاكم وهو موقوف على ابن عمر ولا بد من الضربتين. Right, so there has to be 2 strikes. وإن أمكن التيمم بضربة. Okay, so it's sunnah to 1 for the face, 1 for the arms, but there has to be 2 strikes. بخرقة أو نحوها. والمراد بالضرب النقل. Right, you're not literally hitting the ground. Putting your hand on the ground, putting your hand on the wall, putting your hand on where the dust is. وكون التراب طهورا بأن يكون طاهرا غير مستعمل. والمستعمل something ما بقي بعضوه. والمستعمل منه والمستعمل منه ما بقي بعضوه أو تناثر منه أو رفع إحدى يديه عن الأخرى. So how does it become used? How does the earth become used? Right? You can't, so you can't, if it remains on one arm, you can't use it for the other arm. Or if it comes off and goes onto the other arm, or you took your hand off, then it becomes used. قبل استيعابها. So you wiped your hand on your arm, you took your hand away, and then you keep wiping. Can't do that. Right? You can, so you're passing your hand. So it's analogous to the water. The water comes off your arm and goes onto your other arm. It's now used. But if the water went down your arm, it's fine. The water you're making also, that one drop went down your nose to your toes, from your toes all the way up to your head again, and down and up and down and up and down. It's fine. As soon as it comes off, it becomes used. So the same. They're talking about the same thing here. Right? It's basically it comes off. ثم أراد أن يعيدها. So it says ولو رفع إحدى يديه لو رفع إحدى يديه عن الأخرى قبل استيعابها. You took your hand off the other. ثم أراد أن يعيدها للاستيعاب. And you put it back. جاز في الأصح. Right? It's actually valid on the stronger position. The other position, as I mentioned, is that it's like water that came off. So do we look at like water that came off your arm and fell back onto your same arm? Right? Or do we look at it as water that went somewhere else and became used and then came back? That's the debate there. لأن المستعمل هو الباقي بالممسوحة وأما الباقي بالماء وأما الباقي بالماسحة, that which remains on the hand that is wiping, ففي حكم التراب الذي يضرب عليه. It's like, so do we treat the hand, the earth that is the dust that's still on your hand, do we treat that as used, or we treat that as if it never came off your hand? So we're saying we treat it as if it never came off your hand. So he's saying the earth, the dust that's on your hand is like the dust that was on the wall or on the floor. Right? It's only used if it comes onto your arm and off your arm. Right? لأن المستعمل هو الباقي بالممسوحة أما الباقي بالماسحة, the hand that is wiping, ففي حكم التراب الذي يضرب عليه اليد مرتين فلا يكون مستعملا بالنسبة للممسوحة. وكونه, so that the earth be غير مخلوط بنحو زعفران, that the earth, the dust that you're using is not mixed with something fine that would basically make a barrier, like saffron. من المخالطات, of the things that would actually mix with it. Exactly, the water that remains on the hand is غير مستعمل, correct. That remains on your limb is غير مستعمل. وإن قل لمنعه وصول التراب كثافته. I think it's كثافته. It's like really unclear to read here. لكثافته. Where is the word? In the حاشية. I think it's you have that in your guys. You want لكثافته. كثافته. That would make sense, right? Because it's density. Basically, something that even if it's a small amount, it's such that it stops the earth reaching the limb. The next condition is وطلب الماء ولو بما دونه لقوله تعالى فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا ولا يقال لم يجد إلا بعد الطلب. Right? Did you find it? No, I couldn't find it. Did you look for it? No, I didn't even look for it. So what does that even mean? Go ahead.
Sorry, I thought it was ولو بمأذونه, like if he asks someone else to request the water.
Good. That wasn't. I was like, what does that even mean? Below bidunihi, bima'dunihi. Yeah, the one. So you told your slave to do it. The guy who was with you say, "Hey, Murabit, go and look for water." So now, have I not found water? Yes, bima'dunihi. I told you go and do it. Right. Yeah. Thank you. Below bima'dunihi. Yeah, not bimadunahu. You're right. I was like, what does it even mean, right? That which is beneath you. Okay. ولا يقال لم يجد إلا بعد الطلب ولأن التيمم طهارة ضرورة ولا ضرورة مع إمكانها بالماء. Right. You haven't proven anything, right? You got to prove that you're between a rock and a hard place. You haven't proven that yet, right? So we mentioned many times that tayammum is like a temporary passport. So you go and you're like, oh my God, I'm flying in 3 days and I didn't realize my passport will expire while I'm on a holiday. Okay, so you're going to go to the, what's it called, whatever it is, passport office, and they're going to say, show me your flight. But you don't have a flight. So you're like, oh my God, my passport's going to expire in 3 days. They're like, okay, do you have a flight? Oh my God, my passport's going to expire in 3 days. Like, do you have a flight, sir? Yes. Can you show that to me? No. Okay, I can't give you a passport. You have to wait in line with everybody else. It'll take 6 weeks or whatever it is. Can't give you an emergency passport because you're not between a rock and a hard place. So you have to establish that. Okay, the prayer time has come in. I've looked for water, couldn't find it. Oh, now it's darura, right? Otherwise, there's no darura, right? Can I borrow money with interest right now? Because tomorrow I might not have any money and my son might need an operation and I might not find anybody to lend me money without interest. Could I do that? Could I do a preemptive strike on Musa? Musa might try and kill me tomorrow. So I'm going to do a preemptive strike. Can I do that? He may go crazy and try and kill me.
No.
So you got where's the darura, right? The concept of what, I know it's Texas, you can shoot him even if he's on the other side of the village, but let's say in normal places like California, right? The thief was running away and you shot him, right? So what's the logic? The logic, there was no darura, right? You killing somebody is okay for a darura, but there's no darura. He was turning away, right? So it's a funny story. My dad and father-in-law, he was in Oregon, okay? And he was a nurse and he was what's it called? He finished his shift like 2 a.m. and he was we're getting the money, getting his money from for a cash point at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning. And then these two guys turn up behind him. So he says, back off, I'm armed. And the guys don't do anything. So he shoots one in the leg. Okay, and then the other guy runs away. So then to retrospectively prove Darura, right? The police comes up and he says, so what happened? You said that, for example, you had the gun, and you were scared for your life, right? And they're like, okay, yes, I was scared for my life, right? So the policeman basically added that into the police report, right? So that's what the concept here, right? Prove that you're between a rock and a hard place. The prayer time has come in. I've looked for water. I can't find it. Okay, but the prayer time has not come in. I'm not asking you to pray, right? And you haven't even looked for the water, so there's no proof of darura. Ya Rab. Okay. So now he says, طلب ولو بمأذونه لقوله تعالى فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا ولا يقال لم يجد إلا بعد الطلب ولأن التيمم طهورة ضرورة, right? ولا ضرورة مع إمكان الماء إلا في تيمم مريض. So you're not making wudu for the lack of water. You're using it because of the inability to use the water. فلا يجب فيه طلب لأن تيممه لمرضه لا لفقد الماء وفي معناه الخائف من برد ونحوه. So the reason I'm making tayammum is because it's too cold. وفي تيمم متيقن الفقد أي فقد الماء حسا أو شرعا كحيلولة سبع فلا يجب فيه طلب إذ لا فائدة فيه وإنت right. So he says, I'm certain, that I'm absolutely certain that there is no water around. I don't need to look, then do I? Right. So a حسا أو شرعا. Okay. وإن توهمه طلبه مما توهمه فيه من رحله ورفقته ويستوعبهم بالطلب إلا أن يضيق وقت الصلاة ثم نظر حواليه إن كان بمستو من الأرض وإلا تردد إن لم يخف على نفس أو عضو أو مال وإن قل أو اختصاص like your dog, right? Your dog is not mal, but I'm scared if I go and look for the water, someone's going to steal my dog or someone's going to kill my dog, right? أو انقطاع عن رفقة, right? So basically, when it's simply possible that there's water around, you have to look for it. But you don't have to look for it if you fear that by looking for it, something will happen that allows you to make tayammum, right? It's basically the same thing. أو خروج وقت إلى حد. So this is an awkward situation. So the Malikis, they say that if you have no time left to pray, but you have access to water, but using the water would stop you from praying on time, then you make tayammum. Okay? We have a similar-ish scenario, right? A similar-ish scenario, which is there's probably water around here somewhere. If I went and looked for it, I would miss the prayer. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of similar. So they're saying, no, the water's there. Like you're in front of the bathroom, but it would take you 1 second to make tayammum, 10 seconds to make wudu. Okay, just make tayammum because you're going to miss the prayer, right? Or there's water upstairs. If I went upstairs, I'll miss the prayer. So just make tayammum, right? So we have a similar kind of scenario. We're saying you have to search, but you don't have to search. The searching is now reduced because of that khuruj al-waqt. Right? So he says, where do you have to search if it's possible? So we have it's not possible, it's possible. Okay, so it says إلى حد يلحقه فيه غوث رفقته مع تشاغلهم بأشغالهم وتفاوضهم في أقوالهم. Okay, so not possible, you don't have to look. Possible, you have to go to حد الغوث, right? حد الغوث, right? He says ويسمى ويسمى عفوا ويسمى حد القرب وضبطه بنصف فرسخ أي ميل ونصف بإدخال حد الغوث فيه وبسيل الأثقال 11 درجة وربعا كمن الأشرفية إلى باب القرافة الكبرى. Right. So this is farsakh wa nisf. Give me 1 second. The farsakh, I have it here, is it's about a kilometer, I think, something like that. 1 second. I have these. I have this print of the minhaj. Where is it? This print of the minhaj with all these measurements in it. 1 second. It has all these measurements. What is a farsakh? What is it this? What is that? Where's my book? So guys, make dua for me. I have Dalil al-Talib right next to me, Hanbali, the Hanbali minhaj, and I don't have the minhaj. That's not a good sign, is it? Here it is. Okay, so here I have this print of the minhaj and it has these measurements at the end. So dirham, that's weights. Man al-mad, sa' volumes. So meal. So it says a meal. It had a meal here. Meal wa nisf. So it says meal. If you did meal wa nisf, it says al meal and the Shafi'i is 3.7 kilometers. 3.7 kilometers. So a meal and a nisf. How many yards in a mile? Can't remember now. But anyway, in meters, it's 3.7 kilometers. So times that by 1.5 is about 5 and a bit kilometers, right? So 5 and a bit kilometers, we're talking about 3 miles. Okay, so that's using the meal, right? Let's do that. I'm just going to keep it in kilometer because it's easier. Um, okay, so 3.7 times 5, 1.5 times 3.7 equals 5.5 kilometers. Okay, that's 5.5 kilometers. Now, they said what? Now, in farsakh, where is it? Where do we get to? So, وضبطه بنصف farsakh. So that was 5.5 kilometers. A farsakh then is here. Farsakh is 1 farsakh is 11 kilometers. So ضبطه, what did we just say? بنصف farsakh. Yeah, 5.5 kilometers. Yep, same thing. Right, 5.5 kilometers. Okay, so 5.5 kilometers is about 3 miles, right? About 3 to 4 miles. So what is that a judgment of? That is a judgment of not darura, of difficulty. Okay, so notice this concept, Musa and others, you've heard me mention this 50,000 times, the levels of difficulty. Okay, levels of difficulty. We have darura, life and death, and then we have recurrent difficulty, then we have negligible difficulty, and then something, is it negligible, is it not? So here's an ijtihad. We don't have a nas on this. It's an ijtihad of what's reasonable. Given that it is possible that there's water there, you're expected to walk, you're about to walk 5.5 kilometers, right? I.e., you walk that in about an hour, correct? So you're expected to walk for an hour to go and get water, if it's possible that it's there. Okay? So if you know that it's not there, you're not expected to do anything. If you think that it might be there, you're expected to walk for um uh, you're expected to walk an hour there and an hour back. So around 2 hours, right? On the proviso that no one's going to steal your dog, no one's going to break into your car, no one's going to kill your family, the group is not going to disappear, etc. Right? You're not going to miss the prayer time, right? But if you think it that does it make sense? So we had that was scenario number 2. It's possible. Okay. Make sense, guys?
Yes.
And he says, فلو علم ماء يصله المسافر لحاجته كاحتياب وهو فوق حد الغوث السابق وجب قصده. Okay, so now you know that there's water, there's a river there. Okay, so you have now it's going to go. So now we're going to go to the next level. So this is not it's possible. There is a river. Okay, so there's a river. I could get to that river before the end of the prayer time. Okay, how far do I have to go? So he says يصله المسافر لحاجته كاحتطاب وهو فوق حد الغرض السابق وجب قصده إلا إن خاف على نفسه right على ما مر right same thing. um, okay, so then he says right, so he says uh, so anyway, so what we're trying to say is there's a judgment. The Shafi'is are making this judgment that yeah, walking for an hour, that's reasonable if it's possible, right? So he says فوق حد الغرض ويسمى حد القرب. One second, please. Um, وهو فوق this one here. So this sorry this is the next one. وهو فوق حد so this one here. ويسمى حد ضبطه نصف فرسخ. Oh, but this is the one we're talking about. Is where the river is walking for an hour. Yeah, not the other one. The other one is here, which is like half a mile or something like that. Doesn't mention it. وضبطه بغلوة سهم. There we go. غلوة سهم أي غاية ما يصل إليه السهم. Yeah. So I skipped the wrong one. So we have, I know there's no water. You don't need to go anything. There may be water. You have to go about the distance an arrow would go. Right? There may be water. ما يصل إليه السهم المرمي ويقدر بما ينظر بصره معتدل. Right? As far as the eye can see. Right? That's not really the same, is it? As far as the eye can see, and as far as an arrow would go, it's not really the same. مع رؤية أشخاص وال something. Like you can see them clearly. I think it's مع رؤية أشخاص وال something بينهما. But it's like half a mile, something like that. That's what I've seen other places mention it, half a mile. So it's possible, but half a mile. It's true. There's a river, and it's safe, and we can go. Basically, you have to walk for an hour and come back. That's what we're talking about. Yeah. So these are these three levels. But he says four. So why does he say four? So he says the Hashia says some the he says وترك الشارح حد البعد وهو فوق حد القرب لأنه لا يجب طلب الماء منه سواء تيقنه فيه أم لا آمن على ما ذكر أم لا لبعده. والحاصل أن الأحوال التي ذكرها المصنف ثلاثة. Okay, so there's four scenarios. تيقن الفقد, I know there's no water. توهم الماء في حد الغوث, right? You know it's in about half a mile. You gotta go. وعلمه, I'll read what it says. وعلمه
إياه.
إياه. Oh, جزاهم خير. He's knowing it, knowing that the water is there. في حد القرب, right? So I know that it's there and it's about a mile's walk, 5.5 kilometers. وذكر لحالة توهم ثلاث أحوال: الطلب ثم النظر ثم التردد، وترك الحالة الرابعة وهو كون الماء في حد البعد لما مر. فالأحوال أربعة وقد علمت حكمها. وخرج بالعلم في حد القرب ما لو توهمه فيه فإنه لا يجب عليه طلبه منه مطلقا. وخرج بالعلم في حد القرب ما لو توهمه. Okay, so you think that there's a river there. So that within within like a so within a 10-minute walk, 20-minute walk, an hour's walk, there may be water. That's not obligatory. You don't have to do that. Okay. So where do they get these definitions from? They get these definitions from estimations, right? And an estimation of what's reasonable, right? So it's normal for somebody to walk for an hour to get something. So yeah, it's kind of a normal thing. Okay, and that's that there.
And then are these definitions for what is normal uh, to constitute hardship set in stone now, or can they change with the time? Because now nobody's really used to walking, whereas back then, right?
Yeah, so that's this issue. So I've seen this in Hajj where they mention what's normal traveling. So they said for a woman, uh, a Bedouin woman, to ride a camel, that's considered istita'a, like she can do that. Whereas for a non-Bedouin woman, it's not. So it's actually relative. So to what extent is it relative? I don't know. But that's a good question to put down. Like, to what extent is this relative? You know? So there's things like poverty. Poverty is relative, right? So somebody is like, this is like this person, oh, you don't have electricity. That was normal. I don't. How's that a problem? Whereas from somebody else, like, dude, the guy can't pay his electricity bill. It's like, yeah, doesn't need electricity, right? Some people need electricity, other people don't need electricity, right? Because that's not normal for you to live without your electricity. So when you say need in terms of poverty and zakat and stuff like that, that's relative. And nafaqah, that's relative. And to what extent is it relative? I don't know. In ikrah as well, it's relative, right? So Jawad, if you don't do this, I will show everybody what grade you got in high school. You're like, oh no, don't do that. It's like, it's not a really big deal, right? So it will change how embarrassing something is. And whether or not it counts as ikrah, you were forced to sign the contract, you were forced to divorce your wife, is relative to who you are, right? So you can do that to the president. Hey, I'll share these files. If you don't do this, that could be ikrah. He proves later on, say, no, I was forced to say this. The man said this, right? Because you're the president, because you're the qadi, because you're famous, because that, right? So it's like how embarrassing something is and how significant that embarrassing thing is. It's relative to the person, right? And the situation. Does that make sense? So it's a good question. I don't know. But the point I'm trying to say is it is made up. So this is what we do. The mufti plays God. You have a choice. Because I can see darura, right? I can see things that are clearly life or death situations. And I can see things that are clearly negligible. But in between them, there's a problem. I don't know the answer. Is this significant enough to change the Sharia or is it not? Right? And like that's what we
Is
do.
it Mm.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, can you even qualify that as changing the Sharia if the quote unquote Sharia in that regard is something that was set by, somebody in the past?
That's what I mean by so I don't mean changing Sharia. I mean, does the Sharia change for that? Does the ruling
Mm.
change for that? Right? Is this considered a darura or not? That's the issue. Right? So it happens all the time. That's a question I answered a long time ago on Seekers was like, I bought a new car because I need it for X. If I bought an old car, I wouldn't need to do comprehensive insurance. I could just have the leased insurance. But because I bought a new car and I need the new car, I have to do comprehensive insurance on it. So now I'm doing more haram than I would have to normally do because I bought this car. So am I allowed to do that? Am I not? Right? That's the question. Am I allowed to do insurance to begin with? Right? So can I do so Joad, you're in the States, right? Who's here who here is in Canada? Nobody? Right? So we're all in the States, right? So all in the States, so medical insurance. So right now, for example, here's a question. You're allowed to so if you're allowed to pay for medical insurance, right?
Yes,
Okay, am I allowed to pay for American medical insurance right now, given that I may turn up in America anytime, maybe twice a year I might turn up. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, you see the issues like Fareed. I mean, you could turn up, right? You around the airport and you slip up, and it's like, oh, 10 million, like 1,000, $10,000 to pick you up the airport with an ambulance. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
But maybe not. So it's like it's a bit of a tricky question. So, so the first of all, okay, was like, okay, you are living there every single day. This thing could happen, and it's a ridiculous amount of money in most places, and most people don't have that kind of cash. I don't have an extra $10,000 in my pocket just in case. Hey, pay for the ambulance and pay for this and pay for that. Don't have those things. So it is
Right.
cripplingly difficult, right? And generally there's agreement on that. But what about, oh, I'm just going to visit, you know?
Yeah. And it would be like similar for like one time,
Yeah,
like flight insurance or car rental insurance as well, right?
exactly. So it's kind of like it's tricky, right? So like is this so there's this game that I'm going to play as the mufti slash faqih, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to make up so here they've made up a limit, right? They literally made it up. They said, you know, that kind of distance. Okay, well, what's that based on, right? This kind of far, like, well, okay, why not an extra foot? We're not actually, well, this is ijtihad. So that we're playing God all the time, right? And my brother said this one, my brother's an ER doctor, right? He says that's what we do. Like we choose whether or not someone's gonna live or not. Because how much are you willing to do, right? Here is a 3-year-old who just choked on something and they bust passed out. You're gonna do everything, right? You're gonna do everything and anything to save that kid. Right? They just had this, they had that. You do this, resuscitate, this, that. Whereas here's a 90-year-old, it's like, Alhamdulillah, they died because they were in pain. They weren't happy, nobody was happy, right? And it's like, do we like there's certain things you have to do, and there's certain things you clearly don't have to do, but there's in between, there's this whole gap, right? Where if you had a good lawyer, you could sue somebody, like, hey, you didn't do enough to save that person. And they'd be like, no, we don't. We actually, in these scenarios, it's standard. We actually choose what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. Right? These are these kind of gray areas. Imam Ahmad said the same thing about Amr ibn Shu'ayb an abihi and jaddihi. He's like, we kind of choose whether we use the hadith or not. It's like it's kind of borderline. So there's all these games that we play. There's all these games that we play. Statistics, are you going to exclude that as an anomaly or not? Or are you going to include that in the data and make it and change the average? You know what I'm saying? My brother had this book. It's funny. He ended up doing his PhD in statistics, but this was ages ago when he was like a teenager. He had this book, Lies, Damn Lies, and Statistics, right? So like you play games with certain things, right? Like it's not, you know, mathematical modeling. You kind of play with things. But you could put it this way, put it that way. It's not fact. So, when we say like, Allah has allowed this, like, well, Allahu Alam, has Allah allowed that? Assuming A, B, C, D, E, F, G, this is a reasonable conclusion, right? That's all we can really do, right? It's important to understand that. That doesn't make it useless, but it limits what it is. Right? Okay, where do we get to? So he says, okay, if I walked 5 miles away to get water and 5 miles back, my bag is going to get stolen. Habibi, how much is your bag worth? 10 cents. Do you think you have to pay 10 cents to buy water like that? So yeah, okay. So that's not an excuse then, is it? So if your bag that you were going to lose is a plastic bag, okay, somebody might steal it while I'm gone. It's not worth anything. So losing that property or that ikhtisas, if the value of that money, of that ikhtisas, was what you would have to pay for that water anyway, then that's not an excuse, right? It's quite a useful discussion there, right? So you're not spending the money on the thing, but you're losing the money for the sake of that thing. That's also not an excuse, right? So it's إلا إن خاف على ما مر غير اختصاص ومال يجب بذله في تحصيل الماء ثمنا أو أجرة. Right? And then he says next it says ووجود العذر من علة أو فقد ماء والإسلام لما مر في الوضوء إلا في كتابية تيممت من نحو حيض لتحل لمسلم من زوج أو سيد للضرورة والتمييز لما مر في الوضوء إلا في مجنونة يممت في ذلك من نحو حيض right? لتحل لمسلم للضرورة ونحو من زيارتي. I added that. So he's saying I'm added that to al-Iraqi's book. وعدم نحو حيض إلا في تيمم لنحو إحرام. Right, so it's sunnah to do ghusl before ihram, even if you're menstruating. So similarly, you do tayammum even if you're menstruating. مما لا تختص سنية الغسل له بالطاهر كما بينته في بابه. وعدم حائل بين التراب والممسوح لما مر في الوضوء وتقدم إزالة النجاسة عن بدنه. So here we have this issue. Okay, here we have this issue, which is we say that basically this is a tahara darura. Okay? So everything has to be ready. So so basically you need to be pure. Your body has to be pure. So your body is pure, you're ready to pray. The prayers come in, but you don't have water. So if you have filth on you, can't make tayammum. So here we have a debate basically in the late Shafi'i how this is working. He says وَتَقَدَّمُ إِزَالَةِ النَّجَاسَةِ مِنْ بَدْنِهِ ولو عن غير أعضاء التيمم من فرج وغيره بخلافه في الوضوء لأن الوضوء لرفع الحدث وهو يحصل مع عدم تقدم ذلك والتيمم لإباحة الصلاة التابع لها التابع لإباحة التابع لها غيرها لا إباحة مع ذلك فأشبه التيمم قبل الوقت. Right? He says وقولي عن بدنه أعم من اقتصاره على محل الاستنجاء والعضو الذي يريد مسحه. Right? So he's saying you need to remove filth before you make tayammum. So here we look at the hashiyah, right? And here we have a debate between Ibn Hajar and Ramli. So he says أي غير معفون عنها فلو تيمم قبل إزالة النجاسة لم يصح تيممه على المعتمد في المذهب وجرى عليه رملي. Right? So Ramli says you have najasa on you. Do you have water to remove the najasa? No. Okay, Habibi, you can't make tayammum. Okay, what am I supposed to do? You're going to do salat faqid al-tahurain. You're going to pray as if you couldn't make wudu, couldn't make ghusl, couldn't do anything, and you're just going to pray the fard and that's it. Okay? And if you're making tayammum for janaba, you're also only going to recite the Fatiha because you can't recite anything else because it's not darura, right? So that's Ramli's position. وقيل يصح وجرى عليه ابن حجر يتبنى على الخلاف ما لو كان الميت أقلف وتحت قلفته نجاسة، فعند الرملي يدفن بلا صلاة عليه لأنه لم يتقدم إزالة النجاسة، وعند ابن حجر يصلى عليه إذ لا يشترط عنده ذلك، وخرج بقوله عن بدنه إزالة عن ثوبه مكان فليست بشرط. Okay, so according to Ibn Hajar, it's excused. If you're not able to, according to Ramli, you don't make tayammum and you just pray tahurat. You pray as you would. What's it called? That's Salat Faqd Tahurain. Okay, and we also can see the Sharqawi saying وهو المعتمد وجرى عليه Ramli, right? So in general, after Ramli, the Egyptians all followed Ramli, and they say that the Nihaya almost reached like the level of tawatur because basically it was read to so many people and so many fuqaha agreed with it that it's like khalas, that's the deen of Allah. And when the Egyptians came into Egypt, they said, they translated the Minhaj and they said this is the law of the Muslims, and they used the Nihaya, that's their law, right? That's the law of the Muslims, right, in Egypt, right? Okay, so but this is not the first time, nor is it the second time, nor is it the third time that we will see, even as Tulab Ilm, that there's some kind of that Ibn Hajar is better than Ramli, right? And you will generally find that. That's why the Hadarima in general, and the Makkiyin in general, and the Dagestaniyin in general, they will go with Ibn Hajar over Ramli, right? It's not always the case that it's like that, but it's often the case, right? That there's something with Ibn Hajar that's not with Ramli. That's like Ibn Hajar has some mahara, some skill set, something that Ramli doesn't have. Also, he's stronger in hadith than Ramli. Allahu alam. And who do you think had more money? Who
What
was
did they
wealthier?
do?
Say it again, sorry.
I said, what were their professions?
I don't know exactly how that worked, but I think they were just shuyukh and they received stipends and some of that. But which of the two had more money, do you think? If Ibn Hajar was better in fiqh, which of the two had more money?
Ibn Hajar.
Ramli. Ramli was
Wow.
actually from a wealthy family. So Ramli, his father, Shihab Ramli. So Ibn Hajar's Ibn Hajar's wife was picked on by Ramli's wife. Like, oh, you're poor, you're this, whatever. Okay. Whatever, things happen, right? Humans are humans. So once she goes to him, to her husband, it's like, this is too much. Like, basically, we don't have any money in this, like that. We're like poor people, and like these are like well-heeled. And like your shit, like Zakaria Ansari is a teacher of Shihabuddin Ramli. Ramli is just like Al-Walid, right? So it's like you're coming, one is well-heeled. He's in a place of like, my dad is here, right? Ibn Hajar does not like that, right? And so anyway, uh, so they're both in Egypt, and one is well heeled in Egypt, the one is not. It got too difficult for Ibn Hajar to be in Egypt. Maybe there were more issues, but the story goes the following: that basically his wife goes crying to him, "We don't have any money. She's always teasing me. You got no money. You're poor. You're this. You're that. Whatever it is, this is too difficult." So Ibn Hajar says, "Ta'ali ya hadihi," right? It's not ta'ali, it's ta'ali in reality, but they say ta'ali, like come. He takes her to a well and puts the bucket in the well, pulls the bucket out of the well, and it is full of gold. And he tells her, would you want me or do you want this? Right? She's like, no, okay, I'll keep you. So he puts the money back, and they move to Mecca. Right? Maybe there was more stories to that. Maybe it wasn't as simple as that. But this is many karamat with Ibn Hajar. Right? And then when Ibn Hajar was in Mecca, you all heard of the scorpion story?
No.
No.
Right. So he's in Mecca and he's teaching before Fajr. And he's teaching and a scorpion comes and stings him, rolls over and dies. And he says, call the adhan for Fajr. And they're like, what? Like, what happened? Like, how do you know it's Fajr? Number one. And number two, how did that scorpion just die? You know? He says, simple. He says, what happened was the adhkar of Masa, they extend until Fajr. So basically, the scorpion couldn't sting me until Fajr came in. And they said, okay, so but why did he die? So because the blood of ulama is poisonous. Like if you kill an ulama, you're poisoned. It's like subhanAllah, right? So he had this yaqeen, like khalas, like I know it's Fajr, like this is how it works, right? And subhanAllah is true. Like, we don't worship Allah for the dunya, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches for the dunya to worship him. It's like, Habibi, for crying out loud, do your adhkar. It's like you did your 2 rak'ahs in the 2, 4, 6, 8 rak'ahs in the morning, whatever you did, or your salat al-hajjah, things worked out, right? You didn't do your salat al-hajjah, it didn't work out, right? You gave that sadaqah, it works out. So that, we often we hold ourselves to higher standards than we should, and we fall short of everything. Like the people who worship Allah for the dunya, they're like, oh my God, like I just want to have I want to have an easy life when I'm older. Show respect to your parents for crying out loud. So they'll just know, khalas, I don't even care about the akhirah. Show respect to my parents, I will live long and be successful. That's just in their heads. Or khalas, my daughter's sick, give sadaqah. And they're doing it for the dunya. I just want my child to be cured, right? We hold ourselves to higher standards. Oh, for the sake of Allah, da, 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 da. Like, yeah, dude, but you actually don't do anything, and your yaqeen is much less than them. So, like simple things like for crying out loud, do the adhkar. Now, I remember, subhanAllah, I was a long time ago. I don't advise people to watch it, but watching Lord of the Rings with my kids, and they're trying to get in the mines of Moria, right? And Gandalf is like, okay, they can't get in. Like, 'cause they don't know. It's like, say this, and then there's these magic words, right? Lots of magic in Lord of the Rings. And then it's like, and then they said the right words when they got in. And I was like, oh yeah, that's like du'as, right? And it's like, subhanAllah, what's your problem? Like you get yaqeen from Lord of the Rings. Like you didn't know. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes like we forget. Like it's like that simple, Habibi. It's like these people, they do sihr, they do this and they do that. Like it actually works, right? Like, do you think your du'as, like here's a du'a that you say at this time, here's a du'a you say at that time, like crying out loud, say the du'a. Because it does do things, right? It's almost on a physical level, right? So, this is the kind of basic yaqeen that we should have. That is like, yeah, this dua, Bismillah does something. Alhamdulillah does something, right? Say the adhkar al-masa, say these things, it does things. Don't say them, you see what's happened. Allah subhanahu will teach you. Like, oh, but dude, remember like, alhamdulillah, I was saved from something could be very, very dangerous, but like the at Maghrib after on Eid, like the end of Ramadan just ended, and you see something that happens like subhanallah, just ended, like boom, right? There's a clear difference between Ramadan and not Ramadan, right? May Allah protect us and make it easy, right? Iftah ya Simsim, yeah. No, it's something else. It wasn't Iftah ya Simsim. It was like speak friend and enter. And it's like, how do you say friend in Elvish or something like that, or in whatever it was. And it's like, oh, speak friend. I say the word friend, and it opens the door. Anyway, Minds of Moria. Um, okay, khair. Anyway, so that's one of these issues that you'll find here and there, and you get this kind of system. Is like generally that's why it's like Ibn Hajar then Ramli, not Ramli then Ibn Hajar, right? Allahu A'lam. So then he says in that same logic is, are you ready to pray? No, I have najasa on me. Are you ready to pray? Do you know where the qibla is? No. So he says here, Zakaria Ansari, he says, وَالْعِلْمُ بِالْقِبْلَةِ, right? وَالْعِلْمُ بِدُخُولِ وَقْتِ وَلَوْ بِاجْتِهَادٍ فِيهَا, right? So you have to know where the qibla is. So he says, where is it? وَالْعِلْمُ بِالْقِبْلَةِ ضَعِيف فَيَصِحَّ التَّيَمُّمُ But yeah. So it says فيصح التيمم بعد دخول الوقت ولو قبل اجتهاد في القبلة. Right? So here, what does this tell us about Islamic civilization and fiqh in general? Is fiqh copy and paste? No. When did ijtihad end?
Has not ended. It's just
It
that
hasn't
we
ended.
agree with previous.
Okay. So here's an example. Ash-Sharqawi, when is he passing away, right? Ash-Sharqawi. 1 second. Ash-Shafi'i, when does he pass away? Like 200 years ago, something like that? No, a bit more than that. Yeah, 200 years ago. So 1227. What year are we in now? We're like 1450 something?
1447, no?
I don't know. What is it? 1447? So we're talking about 220 years ago, right? 1447, okay? 220 years ago, right? So ijtihad had not ended, right? And this is Shaykh al-Islam. So you could very easily come like, look, they made Shaykh al-Islam, so now you can't disagree with Zakir al-Sadiq because he's Shaykh al-Islam. Well, he just said it. Da'if, right? So as we mentioned in other classes, right? This is how Ibn Qutaybah describes Islamic academia, right? The later person builds and critiques the previous person, right? It's a discussion. This is a continued discussion, right? And he says, ولا يقال, right? This is اجتهاد. ولا يقال قياس اشتراط تقدم إزالة النجاسة اشتراط تقدم العلم بالقبلة. لأننا نقول العلم بالقبلة أخف من إزالة النجاسة. Right? There's a big difference between I have najasa on me, I can't pray, versus I just don't know where the qibla is, I need to work it out. Right? ولهذا تصح صلاة من صلى 4 ركعات لأربع جهات بلا إعادة. Right? So that's why you can pray. I think the qibla is one way, and then in the middle of the prayer, you're like, no, actually, I think the prayer is the other way. As opposed to, I'm wearing a top and I think it's pure. No, I don't think it's pure. Right? So what would you have to do if your ijtihad changed? You have to start praying again. Right? Whereas the ijtihad in the qibla is, yeah, it's okay. Doesn't matter. Right? And then even the dalil from Quran and Sunnah is, look, notice they were praying and then they turned, right, in the middle of the prayer. So, so this is ijtihad, guys. If you don't want to call it ijtihad, don't call it ijtihad. It's up to you. But it's ijtihad in reality, right? We are trying to discuss halal and haram, right? But what they want is us to reinvent the whole thing. They're saying, no, ijtihad is like this. Ijtihad is when you try and prove that polyandry is halal. Ijtihad is like this, where you say, for example, things like, communism is wajib. Like they want like a totally new religion. So they just want something, they just want another religion. That's what they're interested in. And they're talking about ijtihad. They want another religion, right? Here we're just talking about a flow of concepts, a logical flow that keeps going, right? It keeps going. Okay. Okie dokie. وطلب الماء ونقل التراب فيه أي في وقت فيهما، وهذه الأربع من زيادته، وقد تفهم الأخيرة مما مر أوائل الباب. نقل التراب. Oh, they basically all these things. So basically that وطلب الماء ونقل فيه. So looking for water in the prayer time, so it wasn't like this. I put my hand on the ground, picked it up. The adhan went. I looked around. While I'm moving my hand towards my face, I looked around, couldn't see the water, and then did it. No, the prayer time comes in. I look around. Oh, there's no water. Can't find it. Then do naql. Right. So all those things have to happen at that point. That's the. Okay. He says, وَيَبْطُلُ التَّيَمُّمْ بِحَدَثٍ وقد مر بيانه في بابه وردة وهذا من زيادتي, right? So you leave Islam, may Allah protect us, right? So key concept, if you're not scared of ridda, you don't understand who you are. Very important, right? Because if you're not scared of ridda, you're like, oh, I'm in control of my iman, right? You're not in control of your iman. So you should be scared of ridda, right? You know, whenever we hear ridda, well, you see the books, wal-i'adhu billah, right? He said that he's probably going to say in the Hashia, wal-i'adhu billah, right? Usually you're going to say that. Say, what? Why are you so scared? You're like a sheikh, you're this, you're like, well, you should be scared. If you're not scared, you should be scared, right? Like you should be really scared, right? Not being scared is a really bad sign, right? وهذا من زيادتي وبرؤية ماء, and by seeing water, right? Where do we get to? أي العلم بوجوده وإن ضاق الوقت عن الوضوء وتوهمه كأن رأى سرابا, you see mirage, أو جماعة, you see a group of people, جوز أن معهم ماء بلا حائل, it's possible that you see a group of people, maybe they have water, يحول عن استعماء من سبع وعطش وحذاء, right? So basically it's now possible that, so basically you made water because there was no possibility, now it's not possible, right? فإن كان ثم حائل أو علمه قبل الرؤيا والتوهم أو معها لم يطلب. So basically it's got to be, all the conditions have to be there, right? وقدرة على ثمنه, I didn't have enough money to buy the tayammum water, so I made tayammum, but I have the money, right? All right, and I can reach that money. بلا حائل, بأن لا يحتاج إليه لمؤنتهم أو لدين أو ويمكنه الشراء وزوال علة مبيحة التيمم, right? So the reason is no longer there. بلا حائل يحول عن استعماله, right? So it says بلا حائل قيد في المسائل الأربع الأخيرة وهو من زيادتي في الثلاث الأخيرة وخرج بزوال العلة توهم زوالها. Oh, my injury might be better now. فلو توهم برء جرحه فرآه لم يبرأ لم يبطل تيممه. Right? It's like, So do we say the possibility that my injury is now better, is that the same as the possibility of water? No, it's not. So there may be, the truck is coming, there may be water, you will tayammum is broken. But my injury may be okay now. Oh, is my tayammum broken? No, it's not. فلو توهم برء جرحه فرآه لم يبرأ لم يبطل تيممه إذ لا يجب طلب البرء. Right? So you have to look for water, you don't have to look for a cure. It's not the same. Right? والبحث عنه بتوهمه بخلاف الماء إلا في صلاة في الأربع الأخيرة, right? So you imagine it could possibly be water, you no longer have that excuse, but now you're already in the prayer, right? So the principle is يغتفر في الدوام ما لا يغتفر في ابتداء, right? You're now in the prayer, it's overlooked now, right? There's something else, right? But before you start the prayer, yes, you're going to have to, the mere possibility of there being water breaks your tayammum. فلا يبطل التيمم بشيء منها في غير الثانية حيث كانت الصلاة تسقط به. Right, so in the second one, the second scenario, the prayer yeah, So in a scenario, in a scenario where your prayer would have to be repeated anyway. So if your prayer would have to be repeated anyway, so for example, you are in New York City. There is no water in New York City. Okay? While you're making tayammum, you hear some sound in the drains. Oh, there might be water. Tayammum is broken. Okay, now I start praying, Allahu Akbar. Now hear some sound in the drains, or you hear a truck coming, or you hear a helicopter coming, and it might drop off some water. If you start praying now, you say Allahu Akbar, and then you hear something that may suggest that there's water, your tayammum is also broken. Why? Because you're in New York, and there's usually water in New York. So if you made water tayammum in New York for the lack of water, you would have to repeat that prayer. So therefore, if you have tawahhum of existence of water in the prayer, you will break that prayer. Whereas if you're in the desert, you wouldn't do that. Right? So any prayer that you would have to be repeated anyway, right, then the prayer will be broken for tawahhum, the possibility of that water. بحيث كانت الصلاة تسقط به وفيه مطلقا لتلبسه بالمقصود كما وجد المكفر الرقبة بعد شروعه في الصوم. Right? So it says scenarios like this is it's like somebody who needs to expiate, but they don't have a slave to set free, and then somebody gives them a slave to set free before they start fasting. قبل شروع في الصوم. ثم يندب قطع الصلاة في غير الثانية. Right? So if you're not obliged to break the prayer, it is still recommended to break the prayer. ليستأنفها بوضوء في الأصح. Right? So the question, what do you mean asah? Why is there two arguments? Well, it's haram to break a prayer, right? A fard prayer is haram to break. So how could you even break it? Right? Or do we say no, there's khilaf in the prayer, so therefore you can break it and make wudu. Right? So the asah is you do that. فإن ضاق الوقت حرم قطعها. So now I'm praying in the desert for the lack of water, and I'm in the prayer, and there's a possibility of rain clouds, possibility of something else. Okay? Should I break the prayer or not? Yes, you should. What if you're about to miss the prayer? No, you can't. فإن ضاق الوقت حرم قطعها قطعا. أما إذا كانت الصلاة لا تسقط به فيبطل بتيمم بذلك فتبطل الصلاة ولا وجه لإتمامها. There's no point. وبإقامة أو نيتها وهو في صلاة مقصورة بعد وبإقامة أو نيتها وهو في صلاة مقصورة بعد غير التوهم. That we have, right? بعد غير التوهم. So this is a question I was asked by Sheikh Dr. Shadi Masri, I think it was. وبإقامة أو نيتها وهو في صلاة مقصورة. So you're praying 2 rak'ah dhuhr, and in the middle of the prayer you say, I'm going to stay here actually. I'm not traveling anymore. بإقامة أو نيتها وهو في صلاة مقصورة بعد غير التوهم. كما سيذكره وهو في صلاة مقصورة إن كانت تسقط بالتيمم. So presumably the issue, and I don't know the answer, but presumably the issue is that prayer has to be repeated. بنية الإقامة ومثلها نية الإتمام كما سيذكره في صلاة مقصورة وإن كانت تسقط بالتيمم. So you're praying a prayer, praying 2 rakahs dhuhr, and you either now know or you are able فيبطل تيممه تغليبا لحكم الإقامة أو نية المقضية كل منها الإتمام فأشبه ما لو نوى الإتمام بجامع أنه أحدث بكل منهما ما لم يستح ما لم يستحبه لأن الإتمام كافتتاح صلاة أخرى. One second here. الله أكبر. It says وعرفت أنه يتلخص من منطوق كلامه 18 سورة. الله أكبر. So 18 scenarios where tayammum is broken. يبطل فيه التيمم. والصلاة حاصلة من ضرب 3 وهي الإقامة ونيتها ونية الإتمام في 2. So becoming a muqim or intending to become muqim or intending to pray the full amount. So I'm now gonna pray 4 instead of 2, or I'm intending to do iqama or physically do iqama. في 2 وهما after or with والمجموع وهو 6 في 3. So there's 6 in 3 scenarios, which are رؤية الماء والقدرة على ثمنه وزوال علة. Right. So وبيانها أن تقول إما أن يقيم بالفعل, you actually become a muqim, أو ينوي الإقامة, أو ينوي الإتمام. Okay. بعد رؤية الماء, أو after seeing water, or while seeing water. فهذه 6. أو يقيم أو ينوي الإقامة أو ينوي الإتمام بعد القدرة على الثمن أو مع قدرة. Right. So the issue here, though, is what does this issue here? Why is it considered? It's considered basically start. Oh, I get it. I know what he's talking about here. So basically, what's happening is your prayer changed from 4 to 2. So it's almost like you started a new prayer. Okay, and you started a new prayer. If you were to start a new prayer at that point, your tayammum wouldn't count. Does that make sense? Like you. So it's although you're still in the same prayer, it's treated as if it's a new prayer. Does that make sense? That's what it is. Basically, so in those 3 scenarios, I actually landed, like, I was in the ship, I was praying 2 rak'ahs, and we physically got into the dock. So like, oh, I have to pray 4 now, right? Or you intended to stay where you were, or you decided to not pray the 2 and pray the 4 instead. So when you change like that, it's considered a new prayer. It's like considered like even though you're still in the prayer. So that's why so had you done a new prayer at that time, your tayammum would not have counted for it. So the same thing applies. Does that make sense?
So just so I have the mas'ala clear, and I'm gonna okay, so there's 2 scenarios, right? One would be you're traveling and you're praying a shortened prayer, and then in the midst of that prayer, you arrive. So if you're on wudu for
You
that prayer,
arrive
then
or you decide to stay where you are. So you're
right,
in this random town somewhere. You say, I actually want to live here. Or you were on your ship and it arrived at the dock.
right.
Right. So you
In
intended.
either case,
Yeah.
mhm,
In either case, now your 2 rak'ahs is shifting to 4 rak'ahs.
4 rakat.
Right.
So is there a difference? I know that we're talking about tayammum here, but is there a difference between tayammum and wudu in regards to ability to continue the prayer?
No, there isn't, no. But with tayammum, what we say is that shift, even though you're still in the same prayer, it's almost like starting a new prayer. So you started your two rakahs dhuhr. While praying your two rakahs dhuhr, somebody put money in your pocket, right? I came up to you, put a $50 thing in your pocket while you're praying, and you saw it. So suddenly, in that two rakahs dhuhr, I said, I now have money to buy water. Then you, for one of those three reasons, just because you decided to, or because you actually arrived, you decided to stay there, you said, you know what, I'm going to pray four rakahs. So this extension of the prayer is not included in this general thing of as long as you started the prayer, it's okay. So we're going to say that tayammum does not allow you to pray those extra two rakahs, so your tayammum is actually broken.
Right. So because it was done through tayammum, then you would have to restart.
Yeah. So they're treating it as analogous to praying two separate prayers. Right? Let me take another analogy. Okay, so I'm coming from the Middle East and I'm applying to come to America to work. Okay. Actually, my citizenship. Okay, I was applying my citizenship. So I applied on a Monday. Okay, and I got my citizenship like the next week. So at each stage, I came in on the second day and the third day. Okay, each stage, like nothing's changed, right? Sign that nothing has changed. So I sign all of these things, and each time, when the next stage of that same thing, which is in 1 week, they're like nothing has changed, right? Like, have you been involved in a communist party? So like sign on this day. So the day that I'm getting my citizenship, sign that nothing has changed and I'm still not since I submitted those papers last week, I have not been involved in a communist party. So it's the same kind of thing. It's like you started the prayer, but now that you've shifted your application for the prayer, you've shifted it from a 4 to a 2, right? It's now the conditions have to be there again. But those conditions are not there because in the first two rakahs, you saw the cloud. I gave you the money. You decided to stay. So now when you're adding this, you're changing your application. The conditions need to be checked again. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You're going to say, yeah, it's your conditions are not there. Sorry. Had you just prayed two, that would be fine. We would have said you've started the prayer, and it doesn't matter that the possibility of water, the ability to use the water because of money or whatever it is. But now that the prayer has been extended, either in spite of yourself because you've arrived, or because you chose to go against the sunnah and not shorten, or because you decided to stay here, these two rakahs are treated as if it's a separate prayer. That's what's going on.
Okay, and that's the same reason why, like in that same scenario, if you were on wudu instead, you would just be able to continue and finish it because
it's not
it's not
tayammum.
dependent upon the conditions. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just like you can pray two prayers with one wudu, but you can't do that with the tayammum. Okay. خير. وأما إذا كانت الصلاة لا تسقط به فيبطل التيمم بذلك ويبطل الصلاة ولا وجه تمامها وبإقامة ونيتها وهو في صلاة مقصورة بعد غير التوهم فيبطل تيممه تغليبا لحكم الإقامة. So it says بعد غير التوهم. So we're talking about غير التوهم is I know, not that I it's possible. فيبطل تيممه تغليبا لحكم الإقامة. ما لونه إتمام بجامع أنه أحدث بكل منهما ما لم يستحبه لأن الإتمام كافتتاح صلاة أخرى. That's the key concept, right? That's the key علة here. لأن الإتمام كافتتاح صلاة أخرى. That's the key to understand that مسألة. ويخالف التيمم الوضوء, right, which is what we got to, زيادة على ما مر في أنه لا يرفع الحدث بمعنى الأول السابق في باب الأحداث وأنه لا يجب إيصال التراب فيه إلى منابت الشعر وإن خف لعسر ذلك بخلاف الماء, right. وأنه لا يجمع به أي وإن كان المتيمم صبيا. So for the صبي, the child, you say, I'm not praying fard. So yeah, but it's suratan, right? So just like I can't pray dhuhr and asr with one tayammum, the child can't do that either, even if it's not fard for him to pray, right? وإن كان متيمم صبيا فرضا كصلاتين أو طوافين لأنه طهارة ضرورة بخلاف الوضوء ويجمع به فرضا وما شاء من النوافل لأنها لا تنحسر فخفف فيها مثله ومثلها تمكين المرأة حليلها. So does she have to make ghusl every single time they have intercourse? No, right, just once. She should make ghusl once. وصلاة الجنازة okay. وتعينها عارض وفي أنه لا يصلى به فرض عيني فرض عين فرض عيني فرض لأنه لا يصلى به فرض عيني إذا تيمم لغيره. So you can't do something that's فرض عين like tawaf of ifada or tawaf your fard prayer if you intended something else. So you intended a nafila, you can't do that. I'm making tayammum so that I can hold the mushaf. I can't pray with that. بأن تيمم لنافله أو للصلاة مطلقة أو لصلاة جنازة. والتقييد بالعين من زيادة. I added that. So basically that means you can do salat, you could do a fard kifaya. So, but why did he add this? That's the question. Why did he say fard ayn versus fard kifaya? So I guess the issue is janaza. Just want to see here. So the normal tartib is fard prayer slash tawaf, sunnah prayer slash tawaf, and then other. Those are these three levels, right? But he mentions why did he specifically add that fard kifaya? So he says والتقييد بالعيني من زيادتي. Why did he actually add that? The hasha doesn't say anything. I need to finish here. Can somebody research that? Maybe in some other books? Because in the hashias it doesn't comment on that.
Does the rest of that thought clarify? وقولي لغيره أعم من قوله.
Yeah, but so what do you understand from that? So he says, when I said لأنه لا يصلي به فرض عين, so he said, I've added the word فرض عين. What's the difference? So here's a question. So if I made tayammum, oh, I get it. So basically, salat and janaza, even if it's fard kifaya, it's not fard ayn. No, I don't get it. Do you understand, Jawad? I don't understand.
also confused. We could just talk about it next week. It's
Yeah.
no worries, ya Shaykh.
But Jawad, could you have a look? Can you try and look around for it?
I'll try, inshallah.
Inshallah. So we're trying to find what did he add by doing that? So normally we're talking about like let's something like this. Let's say it's a fard kifaya to do something. It's a fard kifaya to do something. What did that? So here's a masala that could make sense. Is that we say I made tayammum to do the fard kifaya of janaza. Okay? And then I didn't end up doing it. Can I pray dhuhr with that? That would be the masala. Okay? So with dhuhr, for example, I made tayammum, dhuhr came in, I made tayammum to pray dhuhr. I ended up not praying dhuhr. I can actually pray asr with that tayammum. Okay? You can actually, so I did it for reason X, right? So it's again, I'm applying for my R1, I'm coming to America and for work. Okay? I actually got the visa to work, but then the company that got me fired me before I came, right? And I just didn't tell anybody. I'm just gonna come anyway, right? So I'm kind of like I got the application, but I'm gonna use it for something else. So you can actually do that. You did it for a fard, or you did it for dhuhr, but then you used it for tawaf al-ifada instead. That's fine. Okay. So the mas'ala would be I did tayammum in order to do a fard kifaya of janaza. Can I use that tayammum for something like tawaf or something like a fard tawaf or fard prayer instead, right? That's the only masala that I can understand. Otherwise, I don't understand what he added and why he made that point of use adding that word.
As Murabit mentioned, at least for the Dhuhr and Asr example, like making tayammum with the intention of Dhuhr and then praying Asr with it, wouldn't that violate the condition of dukhul al-waqt?
No, because you made that tayammum counted for dhuhr. So basically, it was a valid application. So you didn't make tayammum for dhuhr before dhuhr came in, but you just didn't use that tayammum for fard yet. Does that make sense? So I'm sure there's khilaf on it in the school, but that is it doesn't expire like that now. So you can use it for one fard. But I'm sure there's a budge in the school or a qawl in the school that does expire because again, the whole issue of it being darura, right? So, but anyway, besides that mas'ala, I can't understand why he would add that word and what significance it would have. And why he would make that key point of what did he add? He said, I added the word aini, like what did you add when he said that? Okay, so anyway, let's think about that inshallah for next week. Inshallah wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi sallam. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.